Payne Walker, candidate for Fort Walton Beach City Council, running for one of 4 open seats. That election is coming up March the 14th. If you haven't voted already by mail, I encourage you to grab a friend, family, neighbor, come to the polls March the 14th. Love to see historic turnout. It's an important election for those who are interested in seeing things change down there, improvements made both financially and representatively. And so the way we can do that is by showing up at the polls and voting for those who you feel and your neighbors and friends feel would represent your interests well. Today I come on to make a video specifically about representation. About 3.5 years ago, when I started watching, one of the early things that I came on to, learned about, was an ordinance called 2015-13. There's a link to it posted up above. It's got that in the title, 2015-13. Click it. You can read the text of it. There's a lot of stuff there. The history of it, brief history of it, is that the impetus for that was the suggestion that prayer had to be fixed. Back in 2015, apparently prayer at city council meetings or government meetings was a concern for certain government entities. So they decided, hey, we need to address that. And oh, by the way, while we're in here, let's go ahead and while we open the books, let's go ahead and see if we need to make any other adjustments in the rules of procedures and operations here at City Council. So lo and behold, if you'll read in there, the relevant portion of that entire order, there's a bunch in there, read it all by all means, but the one that really just turned things on its head down there is section 6.2. You can read it. It'll make sense, but to see it in action, understand how it's working in principle there, that's what's really important. And that's what I've learned since the last election. I've really been able to better understand it. So the way 2015 turned things on its head down there in that 6.2 was that it consolidated power, took power from our representatives and put it over in an unelected bureaucrat. Our former unelected bureaucrat, now resigned, thankfully, was at the helm of ushering this in. He was a master of using it. I'll explain more about that in a few minutes. But when I say it consolidated power, 6.2 explains how, where previous to 2015-13, our representatives had the ability, authority, power, whatever you want to call it, to place any agenda item, any item on the agenda. So they're up there at the meeting and a concerned citizen has come to talk to them about something, trash, sewer, water, you name it, police, you name it. We could go speak to our representative, and our representative could say, hey, at the next meeting, I'd like this agenda item on there. Well, that's where it worked and made sense. Well, with these opening of the books and changing the procedures, it took that power and authority away. It placed the power over in the city manager and the mayor to prepare the agenda. And so today, if I were a city representative, our current ones in there, if they want to put something on the agenda item, they get to bring it up at the end of the meeting and request a vote. And so it became a political process. So where I said, hey, I want it on the agenda, they said, yes, sir, it'll be on there next time. That's that. We'll have a discussion next time. But when it became politicized, I had to get a vote of 3 of my other members up there. So the way I've seen it work in practice and believe that it's been working is that the city manager gets in the ear of those others and will, warn them of certain representatives' thoughts and ideas about what they're wanting to do. And they say, hey, listen, Mr. Walker's going to bring up an idea that, might be harmful to our city budget, to our growth, you name it, whatever. So if he brings that up, I'd encourage you not to vote for it. You can if you want to, but you might be the only one. I've talked to the other council members, and I think you might be the only one, so you don't want to be out there with Mr. Walker or Mr. Smith or Mr. Allegretto or whoever. So that city manager wields a lot of power now because of that consolidation. That kind of leads to an additional part of the history of this, how they're all tied together. Many, many years ago, thank goodness, it was, you may have heard of the Sunshine Laws. Sunshine Laws were passed so that no 2 members could get together outside of public meeting and have a discussion about city business, and because they could get together and agree on, yeah, we'll vote like this, and maybe they could talk to another one and they'd vote like this, and so they'd kind of get it together before they ever went in there, and then they'd vote. So sunshine laws nixed that. But when we've consolidated power in the city manager, what has happened is that the city manager has effectively been operating as a conduit to get around the sunshine laws. Common practice, ask any of them, they'll tell you how a part of this works anyway, procedurally. They won't tell you what happens necessarily inside. Some of them will. But city manager goes and meets with Representative 1, says, hey, got an item coming up on the agenda. I wanted to meet with you, talk to you about this very important matter. I've talked to some of the other guys. It's got support. So just wanted to touch base with you on this item, see if you had any questions or concerns about it. The representative may say, yeah, I actually kind of do have a question or two. And they have an exchange there. They go back and forth. Maybe even the representative might be kind of opposed to it. But it's the city manager's job in that private meeting to persuade them to come around to another way of thinking, which could be by, I don't want to say intimidation, but manipulation and control. Hey, listen, everybody else I've talked to in here, they're on board with this. I mean, I know you've got that little problem over there, but you're going to be the lone man out talking about this. And so human nature is everybody wants to be liked. So sometimes they say, well, yeah, maybe if it could change a little bit here, I could be persuaded to go along with it. And there's a little change and modification, and they say, okay, great. It's not, it doesn't sound too crazy, but one of the things that just bothers me the most about it is how citizens are cheated. So in that process I just described, the way it works, and was working a whole lot more back when I first started watching them, and then as me and others from the community started appearing there, they changed a little bit, but still there's a show going on up there. And so when I first showed up, and has changed a little bit since then, here's how it would go. On agenda item we have 11.5. I'm looking for a motion on that. Got a motion. Can I get it? Is there a second? Got a second. Any discussion? Maybe some, maybe not, especially back then. Seeing no discussion, let's vote. Item passes unanimously. Next item, 11.4, whatever it turns out to be. And people watching it, not knowing necessarily, myself included at the time, say, well, that's the way government works. But what happened there was that the citizens, now thank goodness that we can watch it online, we can watch it multiple times, we can hear what they said and watch their mannerisms and reasoning and thought. We can all watch the conversation. When there is no conversation, we don't get to judge our representatives' reasoning, rationale, sometimes their heart. You don't get to see where their heart is. You don't get to see where their thoughts are on things when there's no discussion. And I'm talking about legitimate, real, unrehearsed. So, the way that might look, because I've had to envision myself maybe being a city council member, what would I do? I personally would like to be handed an agenda. Is it 5 days in advance prior to the meeting? Sure, I'm fine with that. I get it. I get to review it. There's the agenda items, and I don't know anything about that one. Okay, let me look and maybe dig around, look for some history, may even write to the clerk for some history on it, or to staff and get some background on it, and then I may develop some more questions. So when it comes up in public meeting, I've not spoken to the city manager about it, and I don't have his or her thoughts or influence on it. I've not spoken with my other members, so I'm going to have my perspective on it, and when it comes up and it makes its way around, I've got a question. So, and then I get to go, and my questions may spur questions from my other council members with me. It may spur thoughts and questions or ideas from citizens who are watching it live or in person. And so, that's an ideal situation in my mind. I'd like to see it. I would work towards that effort. Should I be elected to it? So, one of my first motion would be, unless I'm commenced otherwise between now and then, my first motion would be to rescind and repeal Ordinance 2015-13, which in turn would return the power and authority to our representatives. Even if I'm not blessed enough to be one of them, I want those who are representing us to be the ones responsible for setting the agenda, putting items on there that they believe are important to the citizens, to the community, businesses, people they represent who may speak without have a confidence level with them. and say, look, I've got a problem and I'd like it to, or an opportunity. I have an opportunity and I'd like for it to be put on the agenda. Gets put on the agenda, it will be discussed. Now, when it comes to a vote, I'll make a motion. If it gets a second, discussion amongst the members will ensue, and then from there, votes can be had. So I want to return the power to our representatives, which in turn returns it to the power of the people, which sadly in the 3.5 years that it's probably the most disheartening thing I've witnessed is that the foundation of representative governments is that our representatives will listen to the will of the people and make a decision based on that, even if it's something that they initially, myself included, if I want to make a motion for something, I make a motion, get a second discussion, all in favor, and it goes through that process. At the next meeting, citizens show up, and they show up in great opposition to something I've championed and I was in favor of. I'm going to have to take a step back for a minute and go, hold on a second, I thought it was a great idea. I thought it was going to be beneficial to the community. I tried to explain how I thought it was going to be, but we've got a group of people that have shown up out here that are just, they're really upset about this. I never thought about how it was going to impact them. So that being said, I may make a motion to reconsider. And I'm the one who made the motion, so I can get to pull it back, and we can delay it, we can workshop it. I may still be a champion of it, but when people show up and in opposition, they don't have to just show up. Emails, city council has an email. I appreciate those. I've sent plenty myself. Didn't get great responses. Most of the time I didn't get any responses, but that's the way the power structure should be down there, not in the hands of an unelected official. So looking forward to the election coming up March the 14th. If you have any questions about this particular topic or any other ones, I'm available by email, paynewalker@gmail.com. Also my cell phone and text in particular. I would love to get from you that way. Sometimes emails get pushed back a little bit, so shoot me a text if you have questions. Set up a time to chat with you, answer any questions you have, or discuss your thoughts about any of this. So look forward to seeing you out March the 14th. Thanks for your time and listening, and see you then.